Yes, I'm Lawrence Furbish, the president of the Sweat-Morin Homestead Board, and with me is Hazen Carpenter, the restoration project manager for all the work we did on the Sweat-Morin Homestead. In 2022, Virginia Morin, at the age of 99, passed away, and she made a very generous donation to the Mousam Way Land Trust of a significant amount of money and 100 acres. It was the original homestead of Reverend Moses Sweat. So the land trust wasn't really interested in taking care of the buildings, the house and the barn, and so we worked out a deal to have first the Historical Society and later the Sweat-Morin Homestead Board rent the buildings and about 5 acres to turn this into a historic place for people to come and visit.
Yeah, I want to talk about the house a little bit. I'm Hazen Carpenter. I was fortunate to be in charge of the restoration of the house. I got to tell you that we had some doubters originally that said, "Oh, you should tear down the house, the barn." But we had Maine Preservation come and they said, "The barn is perfect. Save the barn, save the house, everything." And we had Sturgis from Burke who restores many old barns, and he said, "Fantastic, save the barn," which we did. It was a great project. And thanks to Charlie Nickerson, who got us all of this and had the funds for us to do this project.
And Hazen was put in charge, and he did a fabulous job of mustering us along, keeping us in line, and keeping us moving. We're going to show you some pictures now of the house when we started, and so you'll get to see what it was like then. Virginia highly valued her privacy. She loved the outdoors. She loved flowers and shrubs, so she never wanted trees cut down or brush removed and so forth. So consequently, a lot of people never even knew the house existed as they drove up and down School Street. This is what the carriage house looked like. You're going to see views coming up of several of the rooms that you'll see later after we've done work. This was the carriage house. You can see it was sort of her library. This was her kitchen, was in the middle section, which connected the carriage house and the original old house. This is the keeping room. This is the major room in the old original house. And this is what it kind of looked like when we started. In fact, there was even more stuff in it when we started than you see right there. This is another room, another view of the keeping room. Most of the house was filled with carpet, and we pulled that all up, and later you'll see the floors that we found and worked on. This is the back kitchen, it's called. It was again, you'll see it later when we've done some work. And this is the parlor, which Virginia used as her bedroom, and this was the main room in the house. You can see the beams that were never covered up.
This is in the basement of the house. This is a beautiful brick arch underneath here. And of course, it always is in the center of the house, and all the fireplaces set on this. 3 fireplaces sit on this. And some places they would put an arch in, even if it only had a single chimney on, because in here, on the outside, they had shelves. They stored all the canned goods that they had to put up for the winter. And inside under here, they hung the vegetables and stuff that they could keep and preserve for the winter. So this is a big, beautiful, one of the big, beautiful, most beautiful arches I've seen. And the basement is all stone. You can see this particular one straight ahead is almost 12 feet long. You can imagine putting that up with oxen or whatever. They didn't have the equipment they have today. But this is the basement, and we preserved all the foundation, kept it the way it is, and the floor was all dirt, and we wanted to preserve the floor, so we poured a light self-leveling concrete that looks just like dirt, but it sealed the floor. So we kept the old foundation and everything in the basement similar. Okay, this is the barn, and I said there was a little controversy because you see yellow tape around the barn, and somebody said, tear it down. But again, we had Maine Preservation, Sturgis, and we looked at the frame of this barn, and it was an unbelievable frame. And we'll tell you a little later what we had to do to save it. But
This is the cemetery, and you can see there were huge trees growing on the inside. The stones, many of them were not straight. They had been settling and tipping over the years, so it needed quite a bit of work. There's about 14 graves in there. This is the outside also needed a lot of work. There was an immense old grapevine that was a mess. There was a tree you can see growing right up next to the house that needed to be taken down. There was a lot of brush and shrubs around that needed to be cleared. So it was, as I said, Virginia liked her privacy, and she liked having things around to hide the house and attract the animals.
Well, restoration, we talked about this in 2022, made our plans ahead, and around in 2023, we got underway. We actually didn't start doing the reconstruction, until close to April of 2023, and we worked on that a whole year. And we were very fortunate to have, we had one guy that did practically all the work, and that was Kevin Lura, and he came on and did a wonderful job for us. And so we went through it very slowly and did everything right, and replacing the sills and stuff. It's not something you go at radically, and so the year's work of going through this, we get everything right, and he did a wonderful job.
So this is a view of the house. You can see the shrubs and brush are gone, and there was a sun porch on the corner of the house, and we took that down, not being authentic. And when we did, we discovered some granite posts underneath, and realized that at one point there had been a porch there. So as we kept working, we recreated that little porch.
This shot shows what we call the carriage house, and we really think it was. These were the original windows were in there, but we took them out. They were actually replacement windows, but we did take these windows out. I think you'll see later on what we did to the exterior. But under here, we had to go around all the sills under here, and what we did, we put underground drainage all around here to carry all the water away. You can see right here, underground drainage all around there, and we did have to fix all these sills, putting some new sheathing and everything on here in preparation for the new siding.
This is the bar on the left. It's a replica of a colonial cage bar. There was a lot of debate on the committee about whether to keep it or tear it down, get it out of the carriage house. Barbara found a magazine with a picture of a colonial cage bar from Virginia. It was in the taverns, and the cages came down to keep the patrons from getting into the liquor at night. So somebody had this replica built so then once we knew what it was, we decided to keep it.
Again, inside the carriage house, this section here is when you come in looking forward, and those windows on the left we did replace, but you see it's kind of split, this beam in the center, so we feel that where we're kind of standing to take the picture was probably one solid room. Perhaps they brought in the horse and buggy in there, and beyond this post was like the wood shed and everything, because in this portion is the original outhouse to the place. So it probably was divided off. This shows some of the framing we had to replace. As we mentioned before, there was the main house and the carriage house, and they probably had an interconnection between the two, but eventually they connected them together. This portion here, the floor was really bad. So in this section here, we had to rip this all out, and we put a new floor in the connecting area, and we put some concrete all piping for a new bathroom and everything in the adjoining section, which you see in the top pictures kind of shows where we had to rip stuff out. And all the plumbing is up here. All the plumbing, everything was taken out of the basement. All the old piping, the old furnace, everything was out of there, so nothing can freeze in the basement. Nothing is down there. All the plumbing is up here, and the tank for the well is in here, pumps from the well into here.
So this shows you some of the rooms in the original house. Some of the plaster was fine, and we were able to keep it. Other parts of the plaster were really bad and had to be taken down. And you'll see later we got a master plasterer named, and here he is working, named Peter Lord, who does work in historic homes all over New England. And he came in and plastered the areas that needed to be patched and fixed.
Patched a lot of places, but we had to put a lot of new plaster on, and he applied it like the old fiber plaster, so everything is the same as the original. Did an excellent job. This is a fireplace that was in the back room near where we think the kitchen was, and they had put a furnace in the basement and run a big steel flue up through here. We had an awful time getting it out, but we took that out because we didn't want anything in the basement, and we did restore this fireplace.
This is in the parlor, the nicest room in the house. And you can see just to the left of the fireplace, there's a closet. Very unusual in colonial homes. Most didn't have closets. They were just pegs on the wall to hang things on. But Pastor Sweat had over 100 books, so it's very possible that closet was where he kept some of his library.
Again, you can see the exposed beams back there, and you saw them in the other room too, and very unique because these beams were probably hand-hewn right on that property, and they span the entire width of the house. Generally, they would come to a center-bearing beam and continue, but these beams go continually across the house about 32 feet. Beautiful, about 9 by 9, all hand-hewn. Jumping to the barn now, you can see the frame. It's a very unique frame. Some of the connections are old English connections in here, and very nicely framed. The barn was very secure. You'll see pictures later where we raised the barn and leveled it right out. You see one side here was very bad. We had to replace a lot on that one side, and all around the barn we had to replace the sills. That's the barn up in the air, and you see all the boarding on it. And all this boarding is what they call double board batten, and it's one board put on, two boards put on like on the inside, and then another board put over it. So it's like double boarding all over. And they didn't even mill out the boards. They just cut out of the log of the tree and put them on there. So we preserved all this so that we could see all this on the inside, and obviously had to put new siding on the outside. But you can see here that all the sills are pretty much gone, but the frame itself was in good shape.
It was Aaron Sturgis, from timber framer from Berwick and barn restorer, done a lot of work on Shaker barns and other historic old barns around New England, and he was our expert who came in. He brought the moving company in that lifted the barn up, and you can see the work. Hazen can describe what was done.
Yes, he had the moving company, so we hired him, and he did give us a lot of pointers on the barn too. So we hired that company, and he kind of supervised them. You can see all the cribbing, and all the barn would raise all at once hydraulically, and they would go up a foot or so and put new cribbing, and raise it again and put new cribbing. All those are cribbings, and the beams that spanned across the barn lifted the whole barn at the same time, and as it did, it leveled the barn out. And this is up through the center section of the barn, which the floor was very bad. We pulled that up, saved some of the planking. The framing was pretty bad, and we replaced the wood floor in the center. You might see, too, on each side, we did put a new concrete foundation in.
We had a bull pine tree company, Jean Jalbert, come in, and they used their truck to get all those big trees out of the cemetery without damaging any stones. This is some of the wood that piled up. We spent a lot of time, effort, and money removing trees that needed to go, dead trees and so forth. You can see there were two pear trees there, very, very old. One we took down because it was in such bad shape. The other one we pruned and we're attempting to save. We don't know if it's going to make it. It's really an old tree. Nothing lasts forever. In this section, we're going to show you some of the progress that we made going forward. So you can see the porch there and the beautiful little stone walkway that Hazen put together. A nice granite post signifying the entrance to the building. And on the right of the picture, you can see where we put up a faux door where there probably was a door for the carriage to drive in a long time ago.
Yeah, we think that the carriage house might have been there, so we put that door on it. But the other door you see there, we preserved, and that probably went into a woodshed. They used to take all the wood and everything. So we saved that door and preserved that.
So this is the carriage house. There was a rather unattractive red rug over all of it. We tore the rug up. There was plywood. We tore that up, and found that the wood that was underneath wasn't really usable as a floor. So taking wood that we salvaged from other parts of the house, and one of our board members, David Yule, had some boards that he provided. So we had these wide, beautiful, old-looking boards, and we bought special square nails to nail them in so that they looked authentic.
Sink came from Mousam, Maine. They're very famous for making slate sinks and shipping all over the country. So we thought it'd be authentic if we had that. So we called them up, and they made up this sink for us. And then we found this authentic faucet to hook up to it.
And all that woodwork you see in the background was all Kevin Lura's doing. He did a great job. So this is in the keeping room where we did the mantle. You can see the plastering that's gone on above it.
All original woodwork, and this fireplace here they used to cook on all the time, because you're looking at the fireplace on the left, but on the right here's a brick oven, and they used to take the hot coals and put in the brick oven, and there's usually was a little damper in there, and they would shut the damper up and heat that oven up, and then once they could open the damper to get rid of the smoke, and they would put the food in there. It'd stay hot to cook the food.
One of our members scraped the paint on the woodwork all the way down, layer by layer, to get to the first layer of paint, to identify the colors that were in the house in the different rooms. So we're quite confident that they were all colonial colors, and we're quite confident that we've replicated the way the woodwork was painted back when the house was built. This is the back kitchen and the birthing room. These boards were replaced. I mean, they had cut a grate in the floor so that heat could come up through the floor. So we had to take that out, and we used boards we'd reclaimed from other parts of the house to refinish the floor. And in what we're calling the birthing room, this little small area, that had been the bathroom and for Virginia. And so that floor needed to be replaced as well, because there were
that floor we had to completely replace. And the connecting section between what we told you, between the house and the carriage house, we saved all them floors. And we used them in here, and then used them back in that section, and had a few to go in the carriage house. So we saved all the flooring, put it back in.
These are the windows in the house are not authentic to the actual building of the house, but they are replicas. They are the way the windows would have looked, 9 panes over 6. And you'll see later pictures of the so-called Indian shutters that were in those windows that we were able to restore. Back to the barn.
Out in the barn, and this is the tie-up area where they kept the cows. This shows the restored area. Actually, when we raised the barn, we kept these attached, and all this went up with the barn. And then we put new, like a sill underneath it, and brought it back down and restored the planking. But on the left shot, you see all that boarding there. We saved all the planking and stuff that came out of the barn, and we had it pressure washed, and we used it back as wainscoting and paneling to finish off the barn to be authentic. It's really beautiful.
The cemetery, as you can see, trees are all gone, but the stones haven't been reworked yet. That's yet to come. We had some loom brought in, and a lawn seeded in the back. So now you're going to see the results of all of our labor.
Yeah, you see the new roof, all the new clapboards on the side that were authentically done, and and the original paint we feel was on. Yes, everyone seems to like it now. There was a little controversy about it first, but it is unique.
And wait, you can see the little raised beds because we're trying to replicate a legitimate colonial garden with the plants that would have been grown at that time. Here's the inside of the carriage house. It's used as a meeting room now. It's the headquarters for the Mousam Way Land Trust. This little table, we bought the legs and underpinning, but the top is fashioned out of old boards from the floor of the barn. This is the middle section where that coal stove was in there. It's from the 1800s. It's called a station stove. I think it was used in railroad stations. It's not used now, but it's a great old stove and a nice little thing to see when you come in the house.
This is where you first come in the vestibule, but you can see there the nice wide old boards that we saved and put back in there.
So this is the keeping room, and we've started to furnish it. We've been collecting pieces. Some pieces were donated by people who want to help us out. Some were purchased through auction. Most of the pieces that we have are authentic old antiques to the period. There's a few things in there that are replicas that, but you can see this is a spinning wheel that is used for wool. And in the background, you can see a kitchen, like a cabinet that would have held dishes and things for the people to use. Here's the fireplace that you saw before. You can see the iron pots, a butter churn, and the table. This room would have been used for people where they cooked and where they ate. And here's the back kitchen, which is where they did a lot of food preparation. Here you'll see a smaller spinning wheel that would have been used to spin flax, which they made linen with. And we've actually planted a small patch of flax beside the barn, beside a hayfield. Another view of the back kitchen. You can see the bed warmer there. And this is the parlor. In the back, you can see a secretary, which is where we purchased that at an auction in Freeport. It is authentic to the time period, and that's where Reverend Sweat would have sat to write his sermons. He wrote over 200 sermons that are still around at the Maine Historical Museum in Portland.
You can see here in this picture we talked about Indian shutters, these windows in that sitting room, and these are the bottom shutters slid over, but they're actually the top ones too. And they were authentic Indian shutters, but they used to close them off too to save heat and stuff in the winter. They're very beautiful. The barn, well, this is the barn restored, and as you can see, like we said, if you look on the inside when you go there, you'll see all the original double lap boards, but on the outside we put all new pine, and these will eventually weather and look like a real old barn.
And you can see the well to the left of the door in front of the barn. So here's the cemetery all cleaned up. The stones have been cleaned. They've been reset to be in the straight and level, and it's the cemetery holds it's Benjamin Sweat, who was one of Moses Sweat's sons, and his family. They're pretty much all of the people buried in there are. He had 2 wives and 9 children, and they're all buried in that cemetery. And here you can see the nice lawn that we've had done, and we've started to plant some shrubs, mountain laurel and rhododendron, to try to hide the necessary mechanical devices that are outside the house. And here's that's the path out to the cemetery. There are 2 heirloom apple trees planted there. This is their 2nd year, and they're doing very well. We want to plant more. Some of the memoirs that we've read, Pastor Sweat is described as not particularly fond of spirituous liquors, but he was very fond of cider, and he had an apple orchard. So we wanted to get started. We have 2 heirloom apple varieties planted there. We anticipate getting some more. Part of what we're hoping to do is make this a living museum with programs and events. And so one of the things that we hope to do one of these days is to press some cider so people can see how that was done.
All the old farmers that had cider, they kept cider barrels downstairs and they had the cider. Eventually, it made vinegar and they had the vinegar. So all the old homes had it.
Well, there's still more to do. I mean, we hope there's some very interesting things to see upstairs. We'd like to restore one of the bedrooms. We'll have to do something to make the stairs really safe for people, but we want them to be able to get up and see that. There's more landscaping to do. The money that Virginia left, that Charlie Nickerson had taken from her trust to fund this restoration, is pretty much gone. So we're in need of some additional funding. So anyone who has a desire to help out with this and make a contribution, small or large, all would be most appreciated.
I got to say that we did do this whole thing within the budget that I told you we would do. Yeah. But going forward, obviously, we'll have expenses and look to donations naturally.